My name is, can everybody hear me okay? Awesome. My name is Melissa Frank. I am the Vice President this year of the PTA at SES. PTA has a long history of hosting this event for the community to get to learn a little bit more about the candidates for school board. I'm happy to actually MC the event for the first time. So we are going to, I'll introduce your candidates. They are here in order that they will be on the ballot. I have 6 questions that they've already been given and prepared answers for, and then we will go through those. I'll read them and everybody will get a chance to respond, and then we will open the floor for other questions. All right, are we ready? Okay, we have Chris Cerrone, Kelly Tuderdike, Caitlin Zimba, and Jessica Schuster. Thank you for joining us tonight. Are you ready? Okay. First question. Being a school board member is a big commitment. Please take 2 minutes to introduce yourself and let voters know why you are running for a seat on the school board and what involvement you've had with the district to date. Chris?
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for being here. Obviously, big crowd, so we're interested. We love our public schools, which is glad to see so many great faces here. So I'm Chris Cerrone. I live right here in the village of Springville, practically walking distance. I often do when we're at meetings here. I've lived in West New York all my life. I grew up in West Seneca, went to the University of Buffalo with my undergrad degree, and then Canisius College for my master's degree. But I've been in Springville for 27 years, and my connection to Springville and realize what an amazing community it is and how people care and volunteer, and part of it is when I got involved with SYX, Springville Youth Incorporated. My daughter started playing t-ball at age 4.5, and I started coaching. And then I got more involved, and it was literally like a 6-day-a-week volunteer job from March until July. So get to know so many people, and just the spirit of this community made me fall in love with this community. So my most important involvement with this school district is my children. So my daughter is a sophomore in college right now, finishing up exams next week. And then my son, Braden, my daughter, Haley, off at Oneonta. My son is a senior at the high school. So they've been in Springville schools K through 12. And I'm an educator. I teach in Hamburg. My wife is an educator. She teaches in Frontier. So I passionately believe in public education. I've been a teacher for nearly 30 years, for the last 26 years at Hamburg Middle School. So I know quality education. And if this place wasn't a good place to send my children, if it wasn't, things weren't going well, I would have the ability to either move or bring my children where I teach. So I am thrilled with everything that has happened here, K through 12, and I've seen it with both of my children. They're prepared for their life beyond SGI. And I see it in other children too as well. Not necessarily even if they have to go to college, off into the workplace, off into the military, off to technical schools, and I see them ready for it. So I see that volunteer spirit, I see that love in the community. I ran 9 years ago because things were not heading in a good direction in this district. There was a lack of leadership at many levels, and there were a bunch of us that recognized that, and we were concerned. And I saw the same thing was happening in my district where I teach in Hamburg. Things were not heading in a good direction. There was much more publicity up there when it was happening simultaneously, and I saw the impact on us in the classroom, and I did not want that to happen here. So we had people step up and say, no, we're going to make sure this place is a good place for our children. The tradition that Springville's had for a long time of amazing public education, extracurriculars, music programs, athletics, I want that to continue, and I could not let it stop. So we have been so fortunate that I've had a great group of board members from diverse political perspectives come together over the last 9 years, and their singular focus is the students who attend this school and our community as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you. Kelly?
Hello, I'm Kelly Tuderdike. I am a homeowner, taxpayer. I have 2 children in the school, the middle school right now. I'm a volunteer firefighter, and I volunteer at the school when I can. By trade, I'm a pediatric dental hygienist, and I work at Dr. Wahagi's orthodontic office. And my reason for joining is to keep the momentum going with Chris, and we love the school system. We came here from East Aurora. We had a really nice system there, and we did a lot of research, and Springville met our standards, so that's why we're here.
Caitlin?
Alright, as you guys know, my name is Caitlin Zibba. I'm actually a chicken farmer here locally, and I've been employed full-time in a manufacturing business here in Western New York for a little while. I went to school here just pretty recently. The entire time that I went to school here, I was involved in sports, extracurriculars. I would stay after school to study extra. I did a lot of extra help with a lot of things here. But with me being in the school recently, I have a full understanding on what a lot of students want from this school. I know a lot of students who wanted more hands-on activities. They wanted more real-life experiences, such as how to do their own taxes, or how to do their finances, how to save money, how to build credit. Stuff that we actually need as a society to grow. And as a taxpayer as well, that involves me a lot in this community. I will make sure to give every student a chance to success, as they already have worked on. I think there does need to be more improvement on that. I have the dedication and the willingness to properly represent all the taxpayers, the parents, and the students in this district. And like I said, my plans, each and every student, that they need the education they deserve. So if they need, some of them are more advanced, they learn quicker, we need to be able to push them and continue to build their minds. And they need to be brought closer to their education more than ever. Thank you.
Thank you. Jessica?
Hi, I want to echo Chris's sentiments. I think, Melissa, thank you and the PTA for putting this on, and thank all of you for coming. So I have the placard up here. I'm sure most of you know my name by now, but my name is Jessica Schuster. I've served on this SGI Board of Education for 6 years. I am also a 2005 SGI graduate, and in my day job, I am the Associate Deputy Comptroller for Erie County. I graduated summa cum laude from the University at Buffalo in 2009, and in my free time, I'm the proud mom of 3 kids, all of whom are SES students, Henry, Weston, and Sloan. In terms of involvement I've had with the district and on the board, during my last 6 years on the board, I've served on the Erie County Association of School Boards Legislative Committee. I think both Chris and I split the alternate and the delegate role, and now I carried that mantle and he is now the alternate. I also was the board's voting delegate to the NYSSBA convention in 2021. I currently chair the district's audit committee, and I served as a representative during the education element strategic planning session. If any of you have read the bulletins or seen what we've done lately, it's been a deeply involved process that's included a lot of stakeholders, and I was very proud to be one of them. So I previously coached youth sports with SYI, also played them, and for the Boys and Girls Club, back before it was the club. And I've given leadership presentations as a guest speaker for different events in the district. I've also been the board's voting member to the Erie County Shared Services Panel since school boards were allowed to join, which I believe was 2019. That's an opportunity to enter into different participating contracts with municipalities that typically result in cost savings for the district. And last but not least, I'm a proud dues-paying PTA member of the SSPTA, although probably not as active as I should be, and I apologize. I have a few other things, but nonetheless, priorities are what they are, and I'll do better. So my why for running, I had to do a project, or I had to help my son with a project. He's in 6th grade, and it was something to do with ancestry. And he said, a lot of kids have these really great genealogy stories, where they're from, and their grandparents are first-generation immigrants. And I sat down with Henry, and I said, you're going to be so disappointed. And he said, why? I said, because we've just been here forever. We've just been here. So the best I could trace it back, I am 4th generation. I'm 3rd generation village of Springville. I'm 4th generation town of Concord, raising the 5th. I don't know that there's many people in the audience, or frankly, the town or village that can say that. My why is certainly my kids, but also this is my place. This is my community. This is my home. I lived away for a very short period of time when I was in college, and I came back, much to my chagrin at that point in my life, because I didn't think I thought I would ever be back. But the older I get, the more I realize that this is the community I want to be a part of, the community I've always been a part of, and the community I feel that I owe a lot to. I see my board service as sort of a way to give back to the people that gave so much to me, whether that's the taxpayers or the educators that I now feel really privileged to work with and know on a different level. So that's the bulk of my involvement. And I think that, just to echo what Chris says, I'm on the other side now, and a lot of my involvement involves my kids, and that's an equally prideful measure for me. So,
Thank you. All right, our second question is, who was your favorite teacher and why?
Now, are we rotating who starts next question? I think we've done that in the past.
Okay, we can, yeah.
Yes.
Kelly, you want to kick us off this time?
Well, I had a lot of favorite teachers growing up, but I chose to highlight Mr. Biter here at the school at Springville, because when we came in for open house, we were extremely impressed at his method of teaching. Not only were we impressed at how immersive he was and compassionate he was, but our kids, my daughter comes home every day and tells me what she learned, and it's a lot more than I retained when I was in school, so I think it's pretty impressive. So that's what I'm going with.
Thank you. Caitlin?
Well, I do feel that this question is not related to school board duties, so I won't name anyone. But I will say there were a couple teachers within this district, along with others that I have been to, that really pushed me to succeed and continue to challenge me when I did learn things quicker than others.
Jessica?
So I won't say I think it's unfair, but I am going to duck it a little bit, only because I was the recipient of a very stellar SGI education. I see some of them in the audience. Mrs. Reinhardt's back there, and it would be really hard for me, to be honest with you, to pick. Some of the names I wrote down: Mrs. Fran Kingston, Mr. Phil Feraldi, Mr. Andrew Biter, Miss Mariana Krolikowski, Mr. Mike Rokicka, Mr. John Morozic. Only some of the folks who have left an indelible mark on my life. They taught me to love learning, to love maybe the quirky things about myself, to always have a little fun while I was doing it. But while all these folks were incredible, my favorite teachers in my life were people that I spent a lot of time with growing up, and that was my grandparents. I'm gonna try to cry. I didn't plan to get emotional, but they taught me things that we didn't learn in school. My grandpa walked home from work at Winsmith up the hill many days, and I would wait, and I would see him coming, and then he would go to his wood shop where he was a master craftsman, and he would work for another 3 hours. They taught me the value of hard work. They taught me how to be selfless. They taught me what it meant to unconditionally love and support someone who you didn't understand, because I'm sure they didn't understand why I was begging for, the McDonald's for the 3rd time that week, or all of the things they indulged me in as a kid. So while I got a great education, I'm sure this was meant for my favorite teacher, they were truly probably my most important teachers as a child growing up, and certainly now I'm still fortunate to have them in my adult life. So,
Thank you. Chris?
So I don't have to do a Springville teacher then, because I grew up in West Seneca, because I know I get the conflict type thing there. But I had a high school teacher, his name was Mr. Andrew Mahalik, who I had for global studies in high school. And then later on, I had the fortunate time to student teach with him when I was in grad school, getting my education certification. And he was the type of person who, he didn't need to yell, he didn't need to have like this overwhelming physical presence. He just showed he cared about the kids. And then the students behaved, the students did their academic performance that he hoped. And student teaching with him, it kind of rubbed off on me as a role model to how I do what I do when I teach up in Hamburg with 7th graders, which many people would look at that and go, oh my gosh, you teach 7th grade? Because, I say, oh my gosh, you teach kindergarten, how could you do that? 7th grade is amazing energy level, but he gave me that kind of that easygoing, you don't need to be an ogre up front to get the kids to enjoy school, and it carried over to how I viewed my classroom and also some of the philosophy I carry on as a school board member as well.
Great, thank you. Okay, question 3. What resonates most with you about the district's mission, vision, and beliefs? We'll start with you, Caitlin.
Well, I do agree with pretty much everything that is said in all of those statements. But I do strongly feel that there needs to be more action involved in those statements. The school board, the administration, they got to push more and focus on those a bit more, just so that you can clearly say, yes, we say this, we did this. We say this, we did this.
Okay. Jessica?
So, if you don't mind, I'll indulge and I'll just read our mission, vision, and beliefs because I happen to bring it with me. But so it's Springville-Griffith Institute, Central School District, a place where everyone finds value and meaning every day. Springville-Griffith Institute is a learning community that cultivates meaningful relationships, commits to growth and improvement, says yes to voice, choice, and creativity, and knows that learning is limitless. We believe there is innate curiosity in everyone that creates unique paths to learning. We believe in empowering learners to use resources beyond the walls of our schools to engage in real-world problem solving. We believe in learning and playing together to discover, design, create, and contribute to an ever-changing world. We believe in a culture that values risk-taking, where research, feedback, steady practice, and progress foster growth. We believe in providing a challenging, inclusive, and supportive learning environment. So, having been there through at least 2 iterations, I think, of mission and vision work, I can say that obviously there's a deep resonance in them for me because I helped write them. But, I think more broadly speaking, these statements are pretty perfect distillations of the working environments that we really do strive to create for all of our learners day in and day out. The one important thing to me, and I hope you picked up on it, is the emphasis on everyone when we talk about our vision. We began this work many years ago talking about this idea of lifelong learning and what that meant. So everyone doesn't just mean our students, right? It means our staff, our faculty. It means our adult learners who maybe come back for a night class, our community education participants. The same goes for our mission. I think we talk about cultivating curiosity in everyone, playing together, adults, children, teachers, their students, and supporting all members of our community. The emphasis on relationships that you hear in those statements was certainly not by accident. I don't personally believe we can do any of this work in silos. We need everyone sort of rowing in the same direction if we're going to make any real progress forward. And so I think those are the things that resonate most with me when I read these statements.
Thank you. Chris?
And Josh, thanks for reading that, because I think it's important for the audience to know that sometimes things get buried on websites and information and all that. I will start off by saying, just to respond to what Caitlin said, we have the mission, vision, and beliefs. It's kind of like our overarching ideas for the district, but then each year the Board of Education, when we have a summer retreat, will set goals, and that's our goals for the year. Sometimes those carry over multiple years, because basically the superintendent that we hire, and because we've had a great stable board, we have now been able to hire 2 amazing superintendents that have been leaders to restore faith in this district. We task the superintendent with goals, and those are what the superintendent and his team will achieve. Our goal to achieve that throughout the year and then beyond. So that's our goal. But what resonates me with the mission, vision, and beliefs is, from an education standpoint, is the creativity and choice to different paths of learning. So each student's unique, they learn differently, they have their own strengths. So as a Board of Education, we've been emphasizing more and more in recent years to support each student on their own path to success. So for example, some of my work, some people know my advocacy was against high stakes testing for many years. I was involved with that. And although our ultimate goal of ending the 3 straight tests didn't end, we had a lot of influence in Albany, and I still have friends who have the ear of our Commissioner of Education in New York State, and they've had the ability to influence some changes. And some of the positive changes, for example, here at SGI, we've been part of that, is pathways to graduation. So instead of taking all the same Regents exams where we're pigeonholing everybody into one way of learning, we are now getting pathways. So for example, our art department at the high school last year presented on the art pathway. So there's still some Regents exams that the students have to take, but then they take a series of art courses, and those courses will determine their graduation, and there are other pathways too, and I'm sure we'll be working on those along the way. In addition, educationally, for example, that kind of connecting to the community part too. So this Saturday morning, we'll see it, I think this is maybe the 3rd time around, the Makers Market at the high school in the back. It's amazing. So we see the work of our students, and it connects to our community. They're selling products. There's some really good last-minute Mother's Day gifts on Saturday morning, because I know I did that last year. Our ag department, oh my gosh, the Future Farmers of America, what they do. I mean, I was texting my son a week, have you ordered the flowers yet for Mother's Day? Because they're a third of the price of the store and they're 10 times better. And so these are examples how we're making connections to the real world. We still have a lot of ways to grow, but these are the things that we're doing here. And then from a personal standpoint on the mission, vision, and beliefs, to make sure we value every student, that we're inclusive to all, so that word inclusive is in there, making sure that our students have a connection to our school and community, like I just said too as well. So everyone is important that attends our school, every single student. Thank you.
Thank you. Kelly?
Okay, what resonates with me is courageously pursuing challenges and contributing to society. As I volunteer as a firefighter, I try to do my part to contribute, and I think it's important to teach that to the students and get I can't say that word. Have them do that as well. But basically that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, question number 4. You've made it halfway. What is a specific example of an area in the district that you feel needs improvement or more attention? How would you advocate for change, and what change would you like to see?
Jessica. Sure, thanks, Melissa. I think our district is in a strong place overall on many fronts, but it doesn't mean that I don't still think there's a lot of places we can improve. Recently, we have started investing some of our general and reserve funds into New York Class, which is an Office of the State Controller approved investment mechanism for school districts. I think there's probably more revenue making opportunities in the future, given the continual increase we've seen of Federal Reserve rates. I think our business administrator to talk to Class to find out, and I think we're happy to report we've made a lot of revenue this year off money that we'd already collected. I've also talked openly, I think, and not openly, but certainly openly, about pushing for creating and funding different reserve accounts to make sure that we are well positioned as a district for the inevitable rainy days. I mean, they happen. Everybody knows if New York State sneezes that schools, counties, towns catch a cold, right? I mean, that's the way it goes. So there have been different costs that we haven't been able to really capture the full value of, right? New technology, all of our students are now one-to-one. What does that look like if we have to replace those devices for some reason? All of those things, I think, typically when it comes to sort of areas of improvement, I tend to focus on ways we can shore up our finances and our savings. I think I've always been someone who strives to sort of balance the work I do both within and outside of an established system, so to speak, if you will. I have a deep respect for policy and process, but I've never been afraid to break some things when I need to. So I've advocated previously by writing. I write most of our resolutions, and then I'm happy to have co-sponsors on in many cases. And I've shared those resolutions widely with the Erie County Association of School Boards for resources anybody else needs. I participated at in-depth examinations of standing practices with my fellow board colleagues. I think a good example of that, which you'll see on the agenda for tomorrow night, is our homework policy, which we really sort of thought about as a board and had a lot of lengthy discussions on that included input from educators across the system. And obviously, I've always openly discussed any concerns I have at public meetings and with community members who've approached me about them. An area that I would like to continue to address would be the level of fairness that exists between our extracurricular activities in terms of funding, notoriety, and also our capital investments. We've, in the past, asked for detailed breakdowns of expenditures by sport, from our athletic director. We've asked for participation breakdowns and overall extracurriculars, sometimes comparing pre and post-COVID numbers. We've allocated millions of dollars to a turf field that will be multi-purpose, that was approved by referendum. And soon, we'll be breaking ground on those projects that I think really shape the physical plant for very specific purposes for years to come. I want to make sure in the work that we do that we're still doing the most good for the most students when it comes to our future projects. And I'd like to start taking a more systematic approach to thinking about how we go about doing that while continuing oversight to make sure that the things that we are doing, while all good ideas, are really fair to everybody involved in the system.
Thank you. Chris?
Yes. And what Jess did with that investment, the short-term investments, I mean, we're saving money for taxpayers, so that's awesome. And just brilliant idea, we appreciate that. So to me, I can't escape the fact that I'm a teacher between 7 o'clock and 3 o'clock every day. So I still look at the curriculum and what we're doing and what we continue to do better. So our district continues to evolve and make significant progress on classroom instruction, including creativity and critical thinking. My predecessor, Allison, who sat in the board president's chair for 8 years, would basically say on opening day to the team, to the academic team, take chances, take risks, do things to be creative, much like Mr. Biter. I borrowed some of his ideas over the years too. And do things that are outside the box thinking, and those are the things that students will always remember. So that's some of the things that I'm hoping we continue to do. We've been getting so much better at it. The teachers at the high school are hand-strung a little bit because they have a Regents course, if they're teaching a Regents course, or if they're teaching an advanced placement course. They're tied because they don't create the final exam, so they can be tied a little bit, but the rest of us have the opportunity for more creativity, more critical thinking. I teach 7th grade, I don't have a state test. I can do debates, I can do simulations, deep thinking with kids, and we're starting to do more and more of that here, so I hope that continues to go more in depth. If anything comes out of the COVID stretch of time when we had schooling going on here, we had some students at home, some students here. It was a tough time for everybody. Nobody liked what was going on. If we take anything out of that, and I reflect on my own practice as a teacher, is prioritize what the most important things we need to learn. Because sometimes in education we teach this, it's called a mile wide and an inch thick, where we teach a million topics. You probably all remember if you went to school in New York State, the Regents exams, and you would cram those, all that information. You'd have your Regents review book, and then a month later you probably forgot 90% of it. We don't want that anymore. The deep teaching like Mr. Biter, that stuff sticks, and the kids will remember. So we just need to continue to do more of that. And we see so many great teachers doing that, and that's what I hope we continue to improve upon. It's hard to change things overnight, but we've been getting there, and I really like it. Thanks.
Thank you. Kelly?
That is exactly, my immersive classroom learning is what I would like to see more of. It's one definite, less homework, more family time, more time to have more diversity for kids to learn more subjects than just memorizing and studying for tests.
Thank you. Caitlin?
All right, well, one of the first issues that I would address is gender ideologies and critical race theories being taught to children. That is something that should be kept out of schools. That is not something that children should be taught in a classroom. That is something that is completely up to the parents, and it has been that way for years up until recently. So we need to fight to keep any books with sexual content out of schools. There are some within this district that need to be removed. Because like I said, that is something a parent needs to decide on when and if their children learns that stuff, not the school. And then another thing is I feel there should be more opportunities for kids who want to learn farming, because a lot of the classes that they have, you have to have money. I didn't have that opportunity growing up, so I did not get to experience all the stuff that I wish I did. And now I found out the hard way of how to farm. It took me a long time, but I figured it out myself. So I think if we have a class that does not involve parents needing to pay a big amount of money or to have land, that's going to help a lot of students, and it's going to help grow the agriculture community big time.
Here, here.
Okay, next question is, what do you know about SGI's finances, and what skills and qualifications do you bring to the table in terms of overseeing the district's finances?
We are back to you, Chris.
Yes. Okay, so school finance is this incredibly challenging topic. And if you get elected, you could be an accountant, a bookkeeper, someone involved in finance, and the terminology is completely different. I see a former board member shaking her head up front because she knows. And you have to really learn a lot. So even just running a little small business or family budgets, it's completely different. Okay, so it's a big learning curve. So as a long time Board of Education trustee, I've learned a great deal about these issues that impact the finances. So the thing is this, you have to trust your administrators to run the district and then you oversee it. They do a great job of explaining what we're doing. We hire a superintendent, we hire a business official to do that, and they do a great job. They put us in great financial shape. For example, we had a consultant, highly regarded former Superintendent Rick Timms, who has been part of the Rural Schools Coalition for a long time, advising school districts. I've been at a bunch of trainings that he's put on. He had presented at a board meeting maybe about 2 months ago and outlined all the positive things that we've been doing here to put our district in good shape, and how in the near term and in the future, things are looking good. So for example, we get a curveball thrown at us by the state budget. We'll talk more about it tomorrow, but we're in fine shape because of the prudent planning that we've had over the last few years that maybe other districts would be like, oh my goodness, we have to make massive cuts. We have to change the budget. We put ourselves in a good situation. Now that being said, we're subject to the unknown every year. So one of the challenges is we as a community are investing in our children through taxes. But here's the problem. The way New York State does it is we pay approximately 50% of our school budget, give or take a little bit each year, just from our community. So it's not fair because some communities can afford a lot more than we can. We know we don't have a wealthy district. So we need to start changing that, and we've worked on that. We've talked about that through Jess and I, some of our advocacy with Erie County School Boards Association, with New York State School Boards Association as well, to try to fix the funding formula. Because we're in the bottom third of states when it comes to what the state pays versus what the local districts pay. And to ask 50%, your Williamsville, your Clarence, your East Auroras can afford a lot more than what we can. So we don't want to have to ask the community. We're investing in our children, but we want to be able to say, let's do it in a totality of New York State, get the people on Park Avenue in Westchester County to pay their fair share so that all children in New York State have an equal opportunity, not just those in wealthier communities. Thanks.
Thank you. Kelly? I see that our finances are doing really well now. I came to the last board meeting and I read our proposals. My qualifications specifically, being part of the fire department, again, we have meetings and we have a lot of fundraisers. We have a lot of very expensive equipment and our own personal, even our uniforms. They are extremely expensive and the trucks are. So we budget that balance. We balance that budget every month and yearly, and we do a lot of fundraising on that level. So I would bring those skills to this venue as well.
Thank you. Caitlin?
All right, I know Chris said that small business is completely different than school. It is, but it also gives you the core principles of how finances work, how to budget money, along with where you can save money, finding the cheapest options with it without losing the quality. I'm also a taxpayer, so I pay attention to where my taxpayer dollars go. And I've noticed also that about every year or 2 years or so, taxes in this district go up 2 to 3%, and I have not seen the enrollment that would justify that. So I feel that we need to work on that, save the taxpayers more money while also providing a good education.
Thank you. Jessica?
Someone much wiser than me once told me that budgets are essentially a moral document, right? You put your priorities on paper and then you figure out how to pay for them. And I think I've used that a lot when talking about budgets. But it is true that for about, the first 2 years of school board service, you are literally just a slave to the state aid run and you don't really fully understand or appreciate all of the nuances that go into school accounting. I would never say that I know anywhere near as much as our amazing business administrator, Jen Carlton, does, but I do chair the district's audit committee and participate with both of our internal and external audit team in, their yearly review and their meetings. After 6 years on the board, I feel fairly confident in my ability to at least know what questions to ask. I don't always know the answers, but I know when to say something and when to ask the question about the expenses. Not an accountant by trade. In my day job, I do have some understanding of municipal financing, which relates, I think, very well to my role as a board member, frankly, and a steward of SGI taxpayer resources. one of the commitments I made to myself as a new board member was to try and ask a question on a treasurer's report at every meeting. And I think there have been very few in my entire 6 years I have been here that I have not asked one. And I hope that's not just for my benefit, I hope it's for everyone's benefit. But, I think all of those qualifications, all of those skills, and just my sort of fearlessness when it comes to asking even questions that might seem silly, are all important things to bring to the table when it comes to the district's finances.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and our final question from this list is, what do you value most about public education? How do you see your role on the board helping to achieve that vision? And Kelly?
Okay, what I value most about public education is diversity and potential for inclusiveness. Each student comes from completely different backgrounds. Everybody is so unique, and I think we need to always make sure nobody slips through the cracks. Be mindful of our differences and help each other, whether it's special education or social societal needs. I really want all of our students to feel valued and safe.
Thank you. Caitlin?
I feel that public education is a really good option for those who can't afford homeschool or just don't want to do that, or private school. Some parents don't have the time for it, they don't have the money, they just don't want to do it. But parents also need to know that all that their kids are learning is based on how to think and not what to think. Anything involving politics and ideologies doesn't belong in schools. It never has. And so my role will be to bring proper education back to the students and keep anything else out.
Thank you. Jessica?
To me, I think I've said this openly, but public education has always been one of the great equalizers in our society. In districts like ours, students can come from literally any economic background with all kinds of varied and diverse living situations. And I feel really, really confident that they receive the same loving support. Now, thankfully, the same free warm meals and the same access to all of the things we know and love about Springville, the literature, the arts, the extracurriculars we offer. I think probably all of us take for granted the impact our educators and staff, frankly, have on shaping young people into the leaders so many of them are today. I said it multiple times here, but I myself am a product of this school district, which I feel really strongly about paying back. And I'll just say, as a parent, one of the things I wish most for my own children is that they find other adults who are not me, who will see in them the things that I take for granted. The little nuggets that, when my oldest wants to perform his choral production for the 500th time, and we all say, Henry, please, for the love of God, this is the earworm we've been listening to for the last 3 weeks. I hope, and I know Mrs. Cummings openly welcomes all of his rehearsals, right? So when I think about, the way I feel so strongly about paying this district back, I'm happy and I'm really proud to serve as a conduit for connection to the greater parts of Western New York and the rest of Erie County. I have always been one of Springville's, I think, most voracious champions on multiple stages. There are very few people in my life who don't know where I grew up and where I currently live and why I think everyone should move here. So as a graduate and a board member, I believe that that's sort of my role, is to be an ambassador and a liaison. And I'm really happy to do it, and I hope I have the opportunity to continue.
Thank you. Chris?
Okay, so public education is literally the most important institution in our country because our children are our future. So if we don't invest in them, we have problems. So literally our most vital resource is our public schools because they help our children. So if we want to invest in our children, we have strong public education. So unlike private schools, and certainly if a parent wants to send their child to a private school or wants to homeschool, I certainly respect that choice. But if we look at it, across our nation, 92% of children go to public schools. It's much, much higher here in this community, the children who attend here versus children who are in private schools or homeschools. So we have a responsibility for all the children that enter our schools. So sometimes we hear the phrase school choice, meaning like parents choose, but in reality, if you look at private schools and charter schools, they choose often who will attend there. So if a child has special education needs, a child has a behavioral issue, a child just struggles academically, they will often counsel or push those children out or not even accept them. I've seen private schools in our area say, sorry, we can't educate your child because they have an IEP, or you have to sign off on the IEP, meaning they won't get their special education services. We take every child that walks through our doors. It's our responsibility. It's our responsibility to the community that we do that. So we're gonna be helping all children that walk through our doors. So we need Board of Education members that have that in mind, that we care about all children that walk in here. So I can say this unequivocally, I've sat on a Board of Education now for 9 years. I've served with 15 different members who've been elected. 13 of those 15 were parents of current children when they served. And their singular focus was the children who attended the school. They didn't get into the politics of the outside noise that was going on. And we have people from across the political spectrum on our current board and our other boards that I've served on. And we put all that aside because we care about this community. And that's why choosing people that care about public education and care about all children is the primary focus of a board member. If you don't like public education, you shouldn't be on the Board of Education serving the public schools. Now, on top of the children, we also have to realize that the economic impact of having a strong public school system. We heard this from Kelly. You could have lived in Williamsville or East Aurora, but you chose to come here because we have a strong public school system. We see occasionally in the Facebook groups, people are looking for houses or apartments. I want to live in Springville. I need to be in the Springville district. And when families are looking for houses, what do they always say? How are the public schools to the realtors? So if we have a weak public school system, one that was heading in that direction 9 years ago, that fortunately we corrected. So not only are we hurting our children if we go back to those days, we're also hurting the economic driver of our community, our property values that we have for our homes. So it's important to choose people that value public education and value that community and put their money where their mouth is. We have people that up here who are part of this community, that are involved, deeply involved. Those are the people that need to be elected. Thank you.
All right, thank you, everybody. And that concludes the pre-question portion of the evening. So what we will do tonight is we will open it up to anybody else who would like to ask a question. I'm gonna put you all back in school and ask you to raise your hand if you'd like to do so. We will start with you up front here. There is a mic here, if you would like to come up so everybody can hear you.
I am a transgender veteran, and I was wondering what your understanding of New York State law when it comes to transgender students with their protection and inclusion in sports and bathroom use.
I think the laws stand for inclusion of everybody, all transgenders, all children, I'm not really too familiar with all the laws, but that's what I would have it be.
So, go ahead.
So I will say that any biological male who has male parts going into females' bathrooms, that is not okay. I will say that because there are statistics out there of children getting raped by biological males going into their bathrooms. If you don't know those statistics, look them up. They're out there. It is disgusting. And, okay, they can have their own bathroom if they want. That's how it was when I was in school. Or they use the bathrooms that they are there as they're biologically. So, based on the laws, yeah, you can't discriminate, but also what you are biologically and what parts you have, that also matters.
Thanks, Diana, for your question. As far as I can remember, GENDA was passed back in 2019, right? The Gender Expression Non-Discrimination Act, it prohibits discrimination based on gender identity or expression, and added transgender New Yorkers to those protections via the state's hate crimes law. Now, I will say that being raised as the daughter of a social worker, child rape is sadly not something that is limited to transgender adults in bathrooms. It is a travesty, and there is not a single sitting board member here, and I would bet you anywhere else in New York State, that would advocate for child rape. However, the biggest issues I have with bathrooms and my kids are getting them to use them when they have to go poop during school. So I'm not entirely sure that our issues are with transgender adults going into bathrooms. Look, if people are going in and using them and not holding it until they get off the bus, and bonus points for washing your hands, I am pretty satisfied with the situation in our bathrooms in our district.
So I'll add to what Jess said. It's sad that we have a vocal minority of people that have transphobia, and then they use fear mongering. Years ago, I went to a teacher training we were talking about social media and propaganda. So when I teach my students, I kind of go through and look at historical propaganda and modern propaganda. And one of the things I show my students and they laugh is this meme. I saw it on Facebook, it must be true. So that's one of the problems we have is we have people scrolling through their phones all day and they believe that that's really what the truth is, when in the reality it's not. So I have a child in the high school, so I knew this was coming. I said to my son, so we have trans kids at your school, correct? Yes. Is it an issue in the bathrooms? No. And he laughed because he knows he's an actual student in school, okay? And he's been at SGI this whole time. So it's never been an issue, okay? There's not men running into girls' bathrooms or girls' locker rooms. It's not a problem. So it's hateful and shameful when people are being fear-mongering this, when it's not even an issue, okay? Facebook says it's an issue, reality says it's not, okay? And I'm so proud of this generation of students because they're much more tolerant and understanding of all the differences that we have. It's not perfect, hate gets passed down, we know that, but they're doing so much better, and I've seen it. I've been in education for almost 30 years, and I see a difference over these years. The children that now understand that there's differences and they respect those differences. So, and the other reality of it is this. Anything, whether we're talking about critical race theory or indoctrination or all these other things that we see on Facebook, every high school student walks in with a phone. Probably better than this one, as my children will say, but they're little muckrakers, okay? Meaning this, if something went on in the school, they're gonna take a picture of it or get video of it. And we've seen that nationwide. Maybe a fight between students, something a teacher said to a student, something a student said to a teacher, and it's there. Okay, so if these issues were really happening, like a teacher was trying to indoctrinate their political views or change someone's gender identity in a classroom, you can bet this is being snuck out and they're filming it because they can do it all the time. They do it all the time. I'm asking my son, why are you texting me now? You should be at school learning. And he's doing it, so it's there. If these things are really happening, we would know across the country that these things were happening, and including right here at SGI. But they're not, and that's the reality of it.
Okay, thank you. Mike?
Thank you for your service.
Thank you. Caitlin, this is going to be for you. I'm going to challenge you. Nothing personal, but you've said some things I'm curious about, all right? Am I working on this thing?
Get into it a little more.
This is going to be for you, Caitlin.
I'm going to challenge you. It's nothing personal, but I have some questions on what you say, okay?
Yeah, go for it.
The taxes going up 2 to 3% every year. What's the annual rate of inflation outside of this year averaging about?
Depends. I mean, with COVID, there was a higher rate. Before that, it was a lower rate.
It's usually about 2 to 3% a year annually. So I would assume, and I'm a taxpayer too, all right? I would assume it would follow, which is actually pretty good because I came from a district before I moved out this way where they were jacking up the taxes like 9-10%. So 2-3%, good job. My next question, I get nervous public speaking. You said they had books here about sexual content. Can you tell me the names of the books?
There is one book specifically that is called This Book is Gay. It shows how to masturbate, how to have sex, It shows all
What,
sexualities.
what building is it in?
It's in the high school.
Okay, and I would assume,
Specifically, Beelzebub has it.
okay, I would assume we were all teenagers at one time. What did we all do?
Okay, but I will say this. You can't bring a magazine of nude women or nude men. You can't bring that into school
Okay.
because it is graphic. These books have graphic pictures. You can look up the book and find the pictures.
I believe you, but are they educational?
They are not. Do you believe that a minor should be seeing sexual content in school without parental consent?
Well, let me ask you this. Do we choose to send our schools to this school? Yes or no?
Some, yes.
Yeah, kids, sorry. Okay.
Some,
I
yes,
choose-
but others don't have an option.
Okay, so then speak up. My next thing to you is this. Can you read your statement about when she asked, like, the public school thing you said, like, where it's homeschool, public school, or private school? Can you read that again?
What exactly do you want to know?
I believe it was question 5 or 6, the answer to that.
I mean, I could read it again. Public education is a good option for
Okay, right
those.
there. Option. You want to be on the school board for public education, but you're considering it an option, meaning
Because it is an option.
you're okay with other alternatives, is how I took that as. Am I correct?
Yes, it is the parents' decision on where they want to send their children.
Okay, but
And I think everyone can agree on that.
I agree, but when you want to be running, you're trying to sign up to run something that you're saying, but you don't have to come here.
Not
Am I making
everyone
sense?
does. It's up to the parents.
Do you follow where I'm getting at? You're
No.
running for something that you're not really committed to, is what I feel.
Actually, I am committed because I went to this school.
My daughter graduated a couple years ago. My son's graduating this year. It's a great district. Last but not least, the transgender thing. All right? I'm with you on CRT. I don't think they should teach it. I kind of think it's a bunch of poppycock nonsense. The transgender thing, my best friend, I stood up at her wedding to her wife, okay? This person here served our country, chose to go the other way. God bless you. What's the problem with that? And where do you get, where did you get your statistics that there's rapes going on and all that?
You can find them online. They
Where?
are out everywhere.
Where?
I don't have the specific links with me, but they are out there.
Well, give me the
Also,
website.
I never said that it is wrong. I never said I'm against people being the way they want to be. But I did say, as minors, there should not be biological males who still have male parts going into female bathrooms. Same thing as biological females who have female parts going into male bathrooms. That should not be allowed in schools. It shouldn't be taught to kids either. That is still the parents' decision, and if the parents aren't okay with it, the kids can't be forced to learn that.
Are they forced to learn it? I don't know.
Some are.
So, Mike, if I can take a minute, I know you asked Caitlin your question, but, so I actually checked out This Book is Gay, and I frankly don't remember any graphic depictions in the entire book.
You don't remember?
What I do remember, my turn, what I do remember is some, a lot of content that talk exactly about the things Mike is saying, which is internalized sort of homophobia, things that we don't see, right? Saying someone needs to be ashamed or use a separate bathroom might not be the same as saying we don't think these people should exist. But that sort of implicit bias is something that I think is just as damaging to our youth who we especially know, are at risk of suicide. Transgender youth are at much higher risk of suicide than youth who are not. So I think just to your point, Mike, and I hope I'm not jumping in and misarticulating anything you're saying, I think this school board certainly hears you when you say that there are things that probably belong outside of
This
the
isn't a
school
school board
building.
meeting.
But I'm a member, so I'm allowed to speak as a member of the Springville
You're
GS
out of
school board.
turn.
So
It's
what
not
I'm saying,
open
so
time, boy.
what I'd like to say.
Time, boy.
Sir?
I will be
This
Let
is-
them answer.
So,
Let
what I
them
would say is thank you for
answer.
your
Let them
questions.
answer.
I think your points are well made.
Sir,
I did want to
this
address it. I
is-
read the book, and I don't believe there's much graphic. I will not say
respectful.
that there's not certainly information. There definitely is. But nothing more than what I learned in health class about heterosexual sexual activity. So,
Right now, the questions
Thank
are
you.
open.
You're welcome.
Next question, dealing with finance. Yeah, I'm done, thank you.
Thank you.
thank you.
And what we've done in the past, thank you, Mike, appreciate that, is if you don't mind, if not, Melissa, it's okay, is sometimes we've had in the past where a question was directed at one person up here just for the sake of it, but then others can respond based on the answers.
Yeah,
Is that all right?
I was going to
Yeah.
let this is not a board meeting, so there is no specific structure. Everybody can answer. It's an open forum.
I have a question. Are we going for next?
I got-
thought we were raising our hands, sorry.
Okay, so can I respond then, because we can just kind
Sure,
of
yeah,
react?
go ahead.
And then the same thing, if someone directs a question to me, I certainly would let others respond
No problem.
to what happened there.
Stand by
So,
1 second.
so I heard earlier from Caitlin, parents decide, okay? So if there's a book in our library that I don't want my son to read, I call the librarian, I email the librarian, and I say, I don't want my son to read that book.
Absolutely.
But it's not very democratic to say one person gets to decide a whole school of students can't read a book. And we do have a policy, and there is a book that's under that policy right now looked at, where we have our librarians look at the book and determine, is it appropriate for school? Is it appropriate for certain ages? And we have that policy. But we're not in the business of banning books, because who gets to decide what books are read? So again, parent choice. If my son says I'm going to this, my friends are going to this movie, well, I don't like that movie, I don't think you should see it, it's my choice for my son, I don't tell the other children what they should do or not do. So again, one parent should not be able to limit what everyone else access. And even getting into the sex education, I don't know when you left SGI, but there's health class and there's sex education. And certainly parents can opt their children out of certain parts of that, but we have health class here for the very reason is we need our children to understand the consequences of sexual activity and what happens. So that happens in our schools, okay? That's part of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, go ahead.
Hey, good afternoon. My name is Riley Mahoney. I am a resident here in the SGI district, and I have a couple questions for the sitting board members and some of the current candidates that are running for the SGI district. I question you, Chris. Do you have a follow-up to the questions that I asked you on social media? I went to the fundraiser that you, Kelly, and Jessica had at the Arts Cafe. I asked you some questions. You didn't feel comfortable to answer, so I'm going to ask those again.
Yeah, absolutely. I said I would prefer to do it in front of an audience of people so everyone can hear the reaction. So,
Yeah,
absolutely.
You got a good,
Yep.
good audience here tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead, Riley.
So my question is, are you opposed to biological males in women's bathrooms? I know we just kind of touched on this question, but I want to get back into it. And the reason I'm touching on this,
Okay, let's go. It's okay. He's got the floor. That's fine.
the reason I'm touching back on this is, for one, we have minors that are involved with school here. You, Chris, and you, Jessica, voted Code 7552 in the board policies and procedures last year, December 6, 2022, to allow the eligibility for biological males inside women's bathrooms and whatever they identify as. I know many people are concerned about, well, it's whatever, there's procedures that have to take place, but that's not true. It's
Okay.
whoever
Can I answer that now? Because I think you got that out there. That was
Okay, sure.
Certainly understandable what you're asking. First of all, the question is obviously transphobic the way it is phrased. Okay, it's part of the fear
How is
mongering
that
that's happening.
transphobic?
Immediately by using that term biological, I'm going to finish up my statement here, please.
That
Certainly.
is
Okay.
terms that
Let
scientists use
let me answer,
to
please.
define males and females.
Let me answer now. You had your point there.
No,
So-
you can't put words in my mouth and tell me that I'm transphobic when I'm not. That's not how this is gonna work. You
I
work
said
for the public.
I said the
You
question
don't work
was
for the school
transphobic,
system,
not
you work
you.
for the public.
We're
So
gonna
stop
keep
putting
this
words in my mouth.
respectful
Yes.
with an
So,
even tone, please.
So,
Absolutely.
Thank you.
let's
But
talk
don't
about the
put words
policy.
in my mouth.
Let's talk about the policy that happened. First of all, we passed it in a 7-0 vote across our political spectrum of board members.
That's right.
2 consecutive meetings because it's a policy. We have what's called first reading, second reading, and it has to get through a policy committee. Now, first of all, we passed it, moral ground, the right thing to do to make sure every child is treated equally in our school. Secondly, it's legal that we have to do this. There are federal and state laws and New York State education policy that play a role in it. So every school district in the state has to do this, and if they haven't done it, they will be held liable financially and legally if they violate a student's rights. So we did it because it's the right thing to do. Now here's the thing, again, like I said earlier, if there were really threats of boys running into girls' bathrooms and locker rooms, the phone would be there.
There is, that's another thing, that you can't deny that this is a rising
Okay,
issue.
I'm finishing. Finishing.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
Go
A
ahead.
rising issue, again, who says it's a rising issue and where's the proof?
Look it up. Look it up.
Facebook?
Look it up. Why don't you tell the victims' families of the rape of the victims that were abused by biological males
Okay,
in women's
so
bathrooms?
let's go back to
You cannot
Jess's-
deny that simple fact.
Let's go
You
back to what
can't.
Jess said earlier, Riley, and I appreciate what Jess said earlier. Any attack on anyone, especially a child, is horrible. But there is no data
This-
whatsoever that shows that
This is-
transgender people are more likely than any other member of the public to attack someone. I'd be more concerned about adults, 18, 19-year-olds,
You
getting
allow
in
it in your school
relationships
district.
with children.
Look at that code. You allow it.
Okay.
That's in there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You allow it. So you just told me that
No.
that's not
Don't
happening.
put words
but
in
that
their mouth.
is happening. That's
just what
Okay,
you just
Riley,
did.
I think
We
he-
allow the policy,
Okay.
Riley, thank you. Okay, I'm good on that because I think we've covered this pretty solid tonight on how we feel
But
about
you
that.
can't deny simple facts, Chris. This is a rising issue and it's gonna happen here locally. It's just a matter of time.
I think
I'm
the-
telling you,
I think
it'll-
the fact
it'll
is
happen
the
at some
state
point,
law.
and unfortunately, that the school board members, they can oppose this stuff. If it comes down from the state, you can oppose it. You vote on that, that's why we have a school board.
Hey-
If there was no reason to oppose on this stuff, you guys wouldn't have a no
Hey,
vote.
Riley, you asked me
Yeah.
the same thing, so do you want my answer or no?
Sure,
Okay.
yeah.
So, thanks for coming out, and I do appreciate you attending the fundraiser, which you've made light of. In terms of your rising issue, so far I have seen all 2 people who care about this topic come and speak about it.
There is
One of
many
them
more.
is you.
There
So
is
I
many
don't know
more.
if there's any more here tonight or otherwise. But certainly our board meetings are always open to the public, and we always accept public comment. In fact, we accept it twice per meeting. And I have never, in my 6 years, had this come up at a school board meeting. You know, one of the things that you keep saying is men inside women's bathrooms, men inside women's bathrooms, men inside women's bathrooms.
Yep, we heard
And
the first time.
well, I'm just making sure, because I've heard you say it multiple times.
Okay.
And I'm gonna ask you a question. Is there a concern about women going into men's bathrooms?
Absolutely.
Well, you haven't acknowledged that whatsoever.
Well, that
So I
is-
guess my
that is
question
an
is,
issue.
who are we
Well,
really supposed to be scared of? Is it the trans women or is it men overall? And I'm not sure where the real concern lies for you.
Well, you allowed it inside
because-
the school
so,
district because you voted.
Again,
I did not, Jessica.
as Chris
Why are
said,
you
the
putting
moral,
words in my
I don't think I have to argue either the legal or the moral high ground in this situation. For me, rape is illegal everywhere, bathrooms, public streets. Frankly, a woman could walk around naked and no man has the right to rape her. I don't know if that's news to anybody in this room. I would surely hope not. But this continual sort of belaboring this point, I don't know if you think you're going to catch somebody here. The voting public, I'm fairly confident, knows exactly the stances we have taken on these issues, not only because they've been codified in New York State law for many years now, but because most people are fully accepting of this thing.
But this is morally wrong.
That is, again, that's your opinion. So I think
It
that
may
morality
be,
aside,
but
morality
there's
aside,
many people
morality
that are
aside,
opposed to this.
and
There is
I look
many-
forward to speaking
Riley,
to them all.
did you have
I look
another
forward to speaking to them
question?
all.
I do have another question,
Okay.
but I want to finish my
But
response
I
to
think-
Jessica.
I think
You're not
that-
up here at the forum. You're not running.
These are the candidates.
Yeah,
Okay, you
they're
asked a
answering
question.
questions.
Yes.
So if you have another question to ask, you can ask that question, and then I'm gonna move on to somebody else.
Okay. Yeah, my other statement is the wasteful spending that is here within the district. The wasteful spending, what I mean by that is this new $1 million field that got in, that is under construction underway at the high school. That's great. I mean, the middle school looks great, everything looks great. But why are we concerned about image and beautification and not safety and security within the school district?
Okay, so there's a couple questions in there. So here's the thing. The building project that we have was approved by over 60% of the voters. So if you believe in democracy, democracy took place when that was passed. In addition, the student experience, anything, so I go back to my grad school when I did my thesis and how the student experience enhances the educational experience. Students who are connected to their schools, and it's not just the classes they go to, it's the clubs, it's the extracurriculars, it's the athletics. Those things have connected students to school, and they do better in school when they're connected to school. And we're concerned about school shootings. Absolutely, absolutely. Although they're outliers compared to the regular gun violence that happens in our society, students who are connected to our schools are less likely to act out towards their schools. If we look at the students who've gone back to their former schools, they saw that as a place that was bad for them. It wasn't good for them. We're making connections. So all the things we're doing, we're investing. So the athletic field, it's not just the athletic field. So earlier we heard about the ads, the ad program. I'm not sure, again, last time you attended SGI, the investment is also including redoing the ag and tech rooms to make them modern. Our ag program over the last few years is incredible. Anybody who's been to one of our meetings has seen the presentations they give. Go to the Makers Market on Saturday morning. Unbelievable what Mrs. Nickerson does and her students do. It's unbelievable. So we're investing in that. That's what that building project is. This building looks incredible compared to what it was. The high school was dingy hallways in here, small lockers that didn't work. We're investing in that to make the experience better for our students. That enhances the educational experience for our students. We're investing, and that's what it is. And as we heard earlier, we have been staying below the rate of inflation. We have a tax cap. We just can't go spend. We have a tax cap that keeps us under that limit. So we go to it, we're at that because costs go up. Fuel, costs of employees. We need to make sure we're spending this money wisely. If you go back to when Mrs. Moritz was here, as in most districts in Erie County in our region, the population of students has gone down. But we right-size our district in terms of employees to make sure that we are, if you said we could cut employees, I don't think we could find anywhere really to cut employees. We've put this down to the bare minimum of what we need to operate properly to the educational system, whether it's the employees who work directly with students or those who clean and fix and build everything around us.
So that doesn't answer my question about safety and security.
Well, let's answer the funding first. And
Do
then
you want
maybe
my,
we
I was
can
gonna say,
get
do you
back
want
to
my response, or you're only
I'd like
looking?
to finish up with Chris.
Well, you
and
said
then-
sitting board members, so I
Okay.
assumed you meant me, but perhaps it's just
I
directed
didn't
at you,
say that in my
Mr.
second
Cerrone.
question.
Yes, okay. So we have a very significant detailed safety plan. And we're gonna have an upcoming forum again, because we've had some recent school shootings again. Back about, and I'm losing track of time because it seems like just yesterday, but it wasn't, after the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas shootings in Florida, Miami, Florida area, we had a safety meeting, open to the public. And at that meeting, we heard from law enforcement experts, we heard from the public, we had parents come in, they talked about their concerns, we talked in general about the things that we do. We have a long list of plans. We had a parent recently that was posting a lot of things on Facebook after the recent shooting in Tennessee, and Mr. Bielczyk and I met with him, and we talked about some of the things that we're doing. So we're gonna outline those again at a meeting soon to talk about how we keep things safe in here. The one thing I'll say about this is we have a plan, we have things safe, people have to buzz in during the day, students are there, but the thing is this, do we want to turn this into a prison? Because that's not what I want. But I can give some more later, I'll let Jess talk more on that too, as a sitting board member.
Sure. Do you want me to answer, or are you satisfied with Chris's answers?
Yeah, if you feel comfortable to answer.
I feel perfectly capable and confident and comfortable in answering all of your questions. So I think your first question was in regards to the 2 to 3% increase in taxes. Or I'm not sure how you characterize it, maybe as a massive increase or whatever your sky. I don't want to put words in your mouth, so I'm truly asking you. Skyrocketing costs, is that what you referred to it as?
I said that it's rising.
Okay, so rising costs. I think Chris is absolutely correct. This district, as long as I have been a board member, and as long as I am a board member, has made a commitment to remain under the New York State tax cap. A lot of those, many municipalities are no longer, the requirement to stay under the tax cap to receive certain subsidies sunsetted, and school districts, it has not. So we have always made the commitment as a district to stay under the tax cap, and we'll continue to do so long as I serve on this board. I think your comment about wasteful spending, earlier I referenced a budget as a moral document. So, you're certainly entitled to an opinion, but I do think that when we put that document together every year, we make a lot of really important decisions, and I don't really find any of them wasteful, if I'm being totally honest. I was on the board, and one of the things you'll find as a board member is that there are things that fall into your lap there is no blueprint for, you're not expecting, and suddenly you're faced with really tough decisions. We had to think about a 20% deficit reduction plan back during the height of the COVID pandemic when our New York State Foundation aid was at risk. And thinking about what we would do to make those cuts was agonizing, because in this district where we run very lean and we are very responsible with taxpayer funds, we would have had to cut positions. That would have been our only option. We don't have the massive reserves. In fact, school districts are limited by New York State law with what they can have in their reserve accounts. I think you also made some comments in terms of our capital project, which I'm happy Chris pointed out was approved by public referendum overwhelmingly. I'll just say that project doesn't just benefit our school. It's not just for beautification. We had spring sports teams who were unable to practice, who were unable to compete with other districts that already had turf fields. We also see it as an opportunity, I think, to have more participation from, perhaps other community members, youth sports, adult ed, if those things are. We look at our school as our buildings and our grounds as being owned by the taxpayers of this community, because they are, and we firmly believe that. I just think to Chris's point about, I happen to be, had the distinct honor of being an FFA judge for the parliamentary procedure competition they hosted, and I can't say enough about the work that our FFA and our ag students do, and sing their praises high and low. We had the county executive out here to visit. They took a trip to the legislature to practice, I think, in front of the Energy and Environment Committee. So we really do invest in all of our kids. That ag component of the capital project was really important to us, and we prioritized it. In terms of your concerns about safety, I'm not sure if you visited the district website recently, but I am particularly proud of the effort we had with the Be Smart program, which is a gun safety program, where we had a PSA featured. Because I think when you want to talk about school safety, we've all seen, right, the number one cause of death for kids now under the age of 18 is gun violence. But the real gun violence is suicide and self-harm and inadvertent homicide. So one of the things we started as a district is a program which is educational and offers, awareness, free trigger locks, gives information to parents about how to safely store weapons, and I'm really, really proud of it. If you haven't seen that video, I would ask you, please go to the website, because I think it was a great effort between our SRO, our full-time SRO, by the way, who we added to this district's budget back 5 years ago when we had this conversation. And so I think that, if you haven't taken the time to refresh yourself on what we have done in this district to ensure safety, I would encourage you to do so. Because I think there's a little bit of a misnomer that if you don't have a cop at every door, you are somehow forgetting or not thinking about the well-being of your students. And I would push back and say, we have gone above and beyond that.
Okay.
Thank you. Carol.
So you may have seen in the news recently that there was a national report card, which is a longitudinal study about high school learning, high school achievement, and it showed that there was a precipitous, devastating, really, really bad drop in scores related to high school civics. So I'd like to hear from each of you what you would do to invest in students' learning, being able to counter the very destructive epidemic of misinformation, particularly through social media and through disinformation put out by certain media outlets and nationwide organizations, and even here in Springville. I'd really like to hear your thoughts on investing in civics in our, particularly high school, but across the spectrum of learning. Thank you.
Want me to start?
Sure.
So it's interesting that you bring that up, Kara. I've been recently reading about the dichotomy between, I think it's HEAL and STEM, right? HEAL is the new acronym. So STEM, we're all very well aware of now. I think science, technology, engineering, and math. I was not a STEM student, so if I got it wrong, let me know. And then HEAL, did I get it right? Thank you. Okay, and then HEAL, I think, is what? Health, education. Anyway, all the opposite things that I did very well and really enjoyed, which was writing and student government and participation, but I think, you know, forgive me for my sort of bluntness here. When you spend a decade telling kids that all that matters in science and math, and then you equally go back and lament that nobody can communicate to each other and nobody knows how to write properly and their emails aren't, you know, well articulated, well, yeah, duh. When you tell them all that matters is science and math for a decade and a half, you are going to probably have a fall off in some of those things, right? So I think, from my perspective, we certainly look to help and support all of the clubs and organizations that exist that take these sorts of, and I don't want to say softer sciences because they're not soft, they're really, really important. But we have educators like Drew Biter who through Erie 2 BOCES give presentations on digital literacy. We have talked to, you know, we endeavor to make sure our government classes in 12th grade have an understanding of what it means to be civically active, right? I know we've had the Board of Elections in that have helped spread the word about being able to pre-register to vote, right? No matter how you vote, everybody should vote. That's not a secret. That's how democracy functions. You know, so I think there's always ways to grow in that capacity, but certainly this board has taken all of that to heart and very seriously in our mission and vision work because words matter, right? I mean, that's just the bottom line. So, Kayla.
Well, I mean, it depends. A lot of it depends on children's learning styles. For me, I was more of a hands-on learner. And other people learn things quicker than others. So we have to push our teachers to learn how to adapt to that and focus on each child as they need more help with one thing or they're better at this. It's easy to figure that out. It's just a matter of pushing each teacher to do that.
I didn't study this subject yet. I've been really focusing on the banned books and the other subjects, but I'm going to be honest with you. I haven't looked into that, but I am 100% going to look into everything that comes to the board thoroughly. I've dedicated a lot of hours in research over the past couple of weeks on just the books and transgender bathrooms and all the hot topics, and this was one that I didn't think about.
Well, I'll tell you that. You, Mr. Biter, what you like, that's a lot of what we need to do more of in this district. And this is the passion of me, and if, again, the history of me as a parent advocating against some of the state tests goes back to what Jess said, because when I saw my children, and it wasn't anything against their teachers, it was the philosophy of the district at the time was about state test scores, improving our Buffalo Business First rankings, and it was that. And ELA and math were the focus in elementary school. Social studies and science got brushed off and didn't have enough. And we fought hard to work on making that better because we do see that as a concern. And that's why I bring this. I didn't mean it to make light the whole Facebook thing because of propaganda. And we share this with kids and we show them how adults get fooled and tricked in the historical part. But we need to do more of that. We see it here in 7th grade and 8th grade with our great U.S. history teachers that are here. We see it in the participation in government. My son's in a participation in government class right now, and they have to interview a government official. Well, my son copped out because he interviewed me, but I give him a break because he's busy. But we need to do more of that. And that's one reason why I was part of that fighting against the state test, because it hurts in elementary school when they get to the middle school, and Mr. Carb can back me up on this, they didn't have the background like they used to. We saw the change when the ELA and math test became the focus. So we've taken that away as a board. When Mrs. Morris came in and continuing right now with James, is our focus is a well-rounded whole child education. And we're hoping to get more of those types of things like civics involved. And the things that we see, like we have students come in here and present and they see government in action, even our FFA, you think, well, it's agriculture, but part of what they're getting into is government advocacy for their causes too. So we see that happening in that program too as well. It's not just the farming aspect. They're learning how to advocate, give speeches, and do those kind of things. That fits into civics. We need more.
Thank you. Oh, Judy, hold on. I got a couple people.
Okay, hold on, sorry.
I'm going to close it out with you, Judy. Okay?
I was gonna give mine to her if she wanted to.
Okay. Well, Julie in the back. You wanted to? You had your arm up.
Someone wants to go first?
Okay.
All
right.
Kelly, and I have 2 kids who graduated from Springville. And I would like to say I think they got a very well-rounded education. And one of the things that you have all spoken to, and I believe you're all correct, in that what we want for our kids when they leave this district is to be real world, we want real world prep, and we want them to become world citizens. They may leave Springville someday, and not every place in the world is just like Springville, okay? So much more diversity in the world than Springville. And they need to acknowledge that and be part of it and learn to work with that. So we have a lot of diverse clubs in Springville. I know we have a 7th club, which is something to do with religion. We've got FFA, we've got a track club. I don't know, we have a Day Spirit Alliance here, we've got theater, we've got all kinds of things. It's great, okay, but there's this big world out there. Now, my question, and Caitlin, you addressed it, but I'm gonna ask all of you if it's appropriate, about CRT, okay? So when I have researched CRT, first of all, it's something that is generally taught, the actual CRT is something taught in college level stuff. But if I'd like to know what you all think CRT is, because what I'm understanding it to be at the college level is much more examining and identifying causes of social inequality and that state-sponsored racism has caused in all over the years. Now, in my life, I have seen this. I'm 63. I remember I lived in Detroit. I saw the race riots in Detroit. We see Black Lives Matter now. We see all kinds of, I'm not saying it's leaning one way or another, but it is real world stuff, okay? And Black Americans redlining, I think you all may hopefully know about redlining, where certain races were not allowed to live in certain places. So, but I think real CRT is taught in colleges. But as far as politics in Springville schools, we have a lot of diversity as far as politics and a lot of division, okay? My daughter told me that when she was in elementary school, they all had to vote during the 2020 election. And her vote was different than many other people's, and they had to write an essay why, okay, but they at least got the chance to vote. But in the middle school, again, we talked about Mr. Biter and Mr. Carr. My kids, regardless of their political opinion, and every kid here, I remember my daughter coming home and saying, well, we had to pick out of a hat the topic, okay, we picked out a topic, and you got to pick whether you were pro or against it, okay? Whether you were or not, you had to learn from both sides, because you have to look at both sides. So my question to all of you, particularly what Hayden, you most recently were the student here, can you cite a particular example of when you think that teachers were forcing their political opinions on you versus teaching true history, okay? Because you cannot deny there was racism in this country. Our founding fathers held slaves. We talked about women as, at first they didn't have the right to vote. Slaves were 3/5, they were property. So I would like to know some specific examples of what you think CRT is being taught here, and also, well, what you think it is, and specific examples of what you think should not be taught here, or what has been taught here. And this is for all of you, if any of you have anything to speak to about that. But Caitlin, you are the person who has it on your website, and you did mention it. So, and again, I'm not picking on you. All 4 of you are here because you were engaged civically. So that's my question to you, particularly because you're the most recent student here.
Well, I did have a lot of teachers who did mention their views, and they did try to push me and made me feel as though I was wrong for the way that I thought. That happened constantly. I'm not going to name names. That's none of my, it's just not what I'm about. Critical race theory really kicked off in elementary, middle, high schools. More recently, specifically in Buffalo schools that I heard about it the most. I'm just, like I said, I don't know for sure if it's going on here, but I do want it out. I want to make sure it's not taught in schools because it doesn't belong. But a lot of what they were teaching was that everyone is racist. There's white privilege, and I mean, if there's white privilege, I mean, why? Like, what exactly is white privilege, and how come I didn't have that growing up? How come many other people who grew up poor and were white, how come they didn't have this so-called white privilege to get everything they wanted? That's a fact.
Okay, I'll take your point, but I also would say that, I don't know, have you ever been stopped because of the color of your skin? There is all kinds of privilege innate in this system, black, white, black. I didn't get everything I wanted either. But we have to learn to live, and I think history is a different thing than, well, our history is built on.
Could I answer your question, Julie?
Yes, please.
So for and I truly don't go about researching CRT on any regular basis, but my understanding of CRT is essentially it was doctrine taught to first-year law students, right? So this was a way of viewing legal application and study that talked about racially, or had racial components when examining the law. I don't know when BPS started examining the law in their elementary schools, but I mean, if they can fit it in, kudos to them. I'm not sure we have the capacity in our elementary schools to do such a thing. But when you asked about what exactly do you think it is, right, I just started jotting down all of these things that were coming to my mind. So, I personally can't define it in a public school, but I'm not making allegations that it exists in our public school. Because for me, Dred Scott, the Civil War, slavery, redlining, which you mentioned, the Jim Crow South, Rodney King, perhaps all of 1968. Like, I didn't live through 1968, and I'm not sure how people did. Like, I mean, truly, when I think about the devastation and the loss that year all around encompassed, right? To Caitlin's point, the Poor People's Campaign, right? We all heard Martin Luther King Jr. talk about the Poor People's Campaign. So I'm not sure what we are calling CRT these days. I just call all that stuff history. And I would really hope that my children receive a historically accurate education as I feel that I did. Now, there were lots of days that it was uncomfortable, right? Looking at photos of Holocaust survivors at Auschwitz is not a comfortable thing, right? Mamie Till and her son Emmett's dead body, pictures that she personally published, that probably was very uncomfortable for her, right? But I think that if we're going to talk about being good stewards of history, of civics, of learning from the mistakes we make in the past, we owe our kids nothing less than to teach them the truth. And so, without having any working definition of what I actually think CRT is in our schools, because I'm not sure it's there, I would say that I strongly support teaching our children history.
I agree. I did look up some CRT things, and there's a lot of misinformation of the white privilege and that kind of thing that I think you might be thinking is what to try to teach in school. I know they're not teaching that here, but I do believe in teaching accurate history.
I never said I'm against teaching history. I think you guys are both thinking completely different and putting words into my mouth. But critical race theory, you guys can all look it up, it is not history. It is something that has come about racism going on now.
We asked you were asked for a definition and you didn't give one, respectfully.
But actually, I'm saying racism.
I said what is going on in Buffalo.
Julie asked you for a definition
Well,
of
now,
critical race
actually,
theory.
okay, so it's based on the history of our country, and we cannot ignore that there was racism and based on there was racism happening and slavery and black people. And I'm not saying black or white. I'm saying we all have to live together, and we have to teach the facts. And Native Americans, and I know that our teachers here, they teach all sides of that, and they should, in my opinion. As far as teachers maybe pushing their political opinions, I did not find that to be a fact. There were a few that may have said a few things from both sides, which I found inappropriate, honestly. But I don't think we're indoctrinating our children. We're teaching them true history. So I would like to just challenge your notion of making that we're teaching that white people have privilege or that they because you think they don't, and there is a gray area and all of that. But, anyone else? And it's all mine.
I'll add one thing, and I'll try not to be long because I could go on for this forever, since that's my job every day, teaching U.S. history to 7th graders from colonialization and imperialization of our continent to the Reconstruction era. So I'll say this. There are teachers in this building, in all our buildings, that are across the political spectrum. There are some who don't let their political views know. There's others who, in public, like in conversation with each other. So if there was like indoctrination of liberal or conservative ideologies, we would know, because I'd be like, well, that person next door is doing this. That's not appropriate. And students, again, fill me in. And
Not everyone feels comfortable to pull out their
okay,
phones.
but that
Because they get in trouble and they get their phones taken away.
Understood. But I'll say this. When people make a big deal about the CRT, it's a doctorate level course or a law school course. Christopher Rufo, a political activist, made up this crisis to get people to attack public education. Okay? So the whole thing was done, and it was brilliant in his way he did it. Now he's selling books and getting paid for appearances. So the grift was the reason he did it, I'm sure. But the idea is this. We have in New York State social studies standards. In fact, we have teachers from this district who actually serve in the committee. That's proud of that, that's for sure. Okay? And it's a lot of content and it's a lot of curriculum. We have time, we do that. We do multiple points of view. I've seen what my children bring home. So people are like, I'm concerned about what their child is learning. Just open up their binders, please do that. As a teacher, I want parents to look at what their kids are learning. And I'll say this, as a teacher who went through that COVID time, hated every minute of it, teaching over a computer for a spring, and then when we came back and we were doing the hybrid time where students were here for 2 days and 2 days at home, I was assigned at the last minute a fully online class with one of my courses. Hated it, because that's not how I teach. I connect with the kids, and they're off on the computer somewhere. My course, U.S. History, was open to every parent of those 23 kids I taught, wide open. I was teaching exactly how I taught in school, broadcasting into living rooms. And we did that for a little while too, when we had the red or whatever the alerts were, where we sent everybody home in the month of December. We were doing it online, totally open. The packets, the notebooks, the books. So if we're concerned about what kids are learning, please, teachers want parents to be engaged. Look at their binders, look at their notebooks, look at their worksheets. What are they doing? I post everything in Google Classroom. All my notes, all my things we're doing are in there. Multiple points of view. I see what the teachers in this district do. If there was indoctrination or someone doing that, then we work through the channels. We talk with the teachers, we talk with the principals. It's not a crisis, but it's a false crisis again. We hear on a certain cable news channel, and we see on Facebook that this is what's going on. In New York State, we are teaching the New York State social studies standards, and their standards for each of the other subject areas and grade levels. It's fully transparent. It's right on the New York State Education website. You can go right there and see what topics at each grade level, each subject are taught. It's as simple as that. Thank you.
Thank you all.
All right, Judy, with our last question of the evening.
She's gonna sing us a song.
Ooh, are you gonna sing?
Sing your question.
Anyway, my name is Judy Wright. I've lived in this community for about 50 years. And one of the questions I would like to ask Caitlin, on your political board that you had, one of the things was Save the Children. And I was wondering what you wanted to save the children from.
Well, it's all like everything I've talked about. Ideologies that don't belong in school, politics that don't belong in school, the biological males and females bathrooms, all the stuff I've already touched on, that is exactly what it means. Along with medical freedom, parents have a right to choose what medications their children go on, whether they can go to school with or without those medications.
Okay, thank you. Some of the people that are here know my family, and I have 5 children, and my son is gay, and for the people that live here know that a number of years ago, he was into Casey's, went into Casey's, he was in there for 15 minutes, okay? And he was beaten up and left unconscious on the street, right across the street from the bar. He didn't have anything to drink that night. He was in there for 15 minutes. Didn't know the guy that beat him up. 2 girls saw him laying there unconscious and got him to the hospital. And the emergency room doctor said he had never seen somebody that his face was so shattered. He had his skull, okay, he had to have his skull fused together, okay? And he didn't know my son. My son didn't know him. The next day I went to the bar and pounded on the bar, you know, on the table there. And I said, somebody knows who did this to my son. They didn't know him. Nobody in the bar knew who this guy was, okay? And the only way they caught him was a week later. He showed up at the office and was playing pool with a girl that worked, her brother worked at my family has Main Street Pizza, and called down there because he was bragging about what he did to my son. And so the sheriffs came down and they were waiting for him when he came out, and he served 4 years in prison. But they said they couldn't try it as a hate crime. It was nothing more than a hate crime, and it was horrific. So that's one that I want you to understand what it is to be gay. And my son is a wonderful man and did not know this man, did not, you know, do anything to provoke this. And he was left on the sidewalk in a horrible state. He has no feeling on the one side of his face. And I mean, for what? For what? Because he was gay? I mean, I want you to understand what gays go through.
No, and I have many people who I know that are very close to me who are gay, they are lesbian, whatever. And I'm not saying that they can't be that way. I've never once said that. And that is horrible what happened to your son. And I'm sorry he had to go through that. But that is something that goes through the legal system. That's not something I can do anything about. You know, it's something
but
that...
we can do something about legal systems. We are the people.
As a school board member, though, that doesn't pertain to the school. All that it
but
does...
I'm saying personally, we can all do something to make changes. And bring it down to the personal level. And on top of my son being gay, all right, I chose to adopt 2 children that are biracial. I have 5 children. And the last 2 I adopted, and they're biracial, all right? Okay. And they went to this school system, and they flourished here, okay? And I even wrote, when they graduated, I wrote a thing in the journal thanking this community because they were accepted in this community. And they were voted by their classmates as the most all-around student, girl and boy in their class. That's amazing. And as a mother, and so I do thank this community for everything that they have accepted in my family. But we can't stop the schools from teaching Black history.
I never said that they have to stop that.
What was
I said The school needs to teach English, math, science, history.
History.
Yes, I did say that. I never said I am against history being taught. I love history.
Okay.
But when it comes to recent things, saying that all white people are racist, or all white people who support this presidential candidate are racist, that is what's going on in this world, and many teachers have taught that to their students.
We have to teach the truth.
Exactly.
We have to teach the
But
truth.
not politics. Because you have to teach a child
I'm not
how to
talking-
think and not what to think.
No one's gonna sit here and interrupt Judy Wright while I'm sitting on this
But
forum.
you
So I think it's Judy's time on the floor.
You have interrupted
Respectfully.
me so many times throughout this entire thing.
I'm acknowledging Judy's time on the floor.
I just think that in this world, with everything that's going on right now, you know, when you send your kid to school, you have to have, I'm a great grandmother. I have 7 kids in this, 7 great grandkids, from elementary to middle to high school in these schools. And I don't want to think that they could get shot. You know, I don't want to think this. The world has got to come together and stop this hate for whatever area it's in. You know, we don't need AK-15s, all right? And a person can get that, just they can get it in some states. I mean, what are we thinking? What are we thinking? I wouldn't let my boys play with guns when they were little. And I also wouldn't let them watch the Three Stooges because they knew enough stuff to poke eyes and everything else. But I thought as a child, you know, I want to raise them to not think of violence. Now my one son, he hunts. I have no problem with that. I have no problem with hunting. But we don't need these AK-15s and have to worry about our child being shot to the point where the parent doesn't even recognize them. They have to recognize them by what they're wearing to school. What have we come to in our country? What have we come to? And personally, we have to take a stand on these things.
I think we need to take a stand on the violence and not our constitutionally protected rights.
I
think we're getting very far from.
I mean, we're respect
I definitely respect it, but I think we're
all right.
getting very far from the
Thank
question.
you. Judy, I think everybody can appreciate the sentiment of we just want our kids to be safe and
Yes.
happy.
Yes.
So thank you.
Okay, and I thank the school district. I thank you. I thank this community. Thank you.
Okay, I would like to thank all of the candidates for coming this evening, and I would like to thank all of the community members who attended. This is an amazing turnout for an event that 8 years ago when I started in the PTA, I think maybe 5 people came to. So I'm super happy to see the turnout that this has started to create, and I hope it continues as years continue. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you, Melissa.
Good luck.
Thank you.